So, hello everyone, and welcome to VinUni Research Bootcamp. And my name is Tu Tang. I am a second-year student in Doctor Medicine at Vin University.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to VinUni Research Bootcamp. And my name is Tu Tang. I am a second-year student in Doctor Medicine at
Today we are really glad to.
I am a second-year student in Doctor Medicine.
So, sorry guys, a little bit technical issue. So now, today we are really glad to launch a workshop about citation management and copyright.
This a little bit technical issue.
So these sessions will provide participants with hands-on experience using Mendeley Desktop, which is a free yet powerful reference management tool. And participants will leave with a basic understanding of how this tool can help them keep their digital assets organized, annotate and search within them, and automatically generate references lists. And moreover, we will also touch on the importance of copyright and how to find sources in a legal way. So now we would like to welcome Mr. Daniel Ruel, the Program Director of English and Communications at Faculty of Arts and Sciences of University. He has been teaching English for over 15 years across many areas, focusing mainly on English for academic purposes and English for specific purposes. And more interestingly, he has appeared on VTV7 television programs, 8 IELTS, and IELTS Face Off for as an invited expert. So I reckon that Mr. Daniel Rua has been a very familiar expert to some of you here, and now he's our witty academic English lecturer here since we are Venetians. So hello, Mr. Ruel. Thank you so much for your involvement today to introduce our audiences here on how to organize this citation flawlessly. So let's not keep our participant waiting longer. Please start your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chang. And I have to say, of all the introductions I've ever had, I think you're the only one who's ever pronounced my last name correctly. So bravo, I am very impressed. It's a hard name to pronounce. You have to do your best French accent, Ruel, and you did a wonderful job, along with all the other parts of the introduction. So thank you very much, very appreciated. And welcome everyone. I see a couple of familiar faces in the chat box. So some of you may have seen this before. If so, hopefully this will be a nice refresher because I really believe in the power of this tool called Mendeley Desktop. And if you haven't yet studied Academic English 2 at VinUni, then this is a sneak preview of what's to come. And if you're not a VinUni student, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I hope this tool will be helpful in your studies as well. Okay, so let's get started. Hopefully by the end of the workshop, you'll be able to understand some of the three common or popular reference managers out there and compare some of the features and some of the drawbacks of all of them. The main part of the workshop today will be interactive. So we're actually going to be using this tool together. And we'll cover some basic functions just to get you exploring the possibility of this tool called Mendeley Desktop. And I'll close off by sharing some techniques to maybe help you find academic journal articles while respecting copyright. Okay, sounds fun? Hope so. It is an interactive workshop, so the majority of the session will actually be using this tool, which means if you don't already have this installed, you'll need to download and install this free software called Mendeley Desktop. I'll show you the instructions on the next slide. And because it might take a few minutes for you to install it, I'll tell you a little story about myself stuck in the library when I was a second-year university student. Okay, so that's a bit of story time to kill some time while you're installing the software. So to install this tool, first you need to create a free account with Elsevier. Here's a shortcut link. I'm not sure if the host can paste it into the chat box, but worst case, you can just type it into your web browser. bit.ly/Mendeley, be careful of the E, the second E there, 1234. If you're a VinUni student, you can press the sign in via your institution button and just type Vin University as the name of the institution. Type your VinUni email address and it will send you a link. Just click on the link and it will create your account. If you're not a VinUni student, you just need to fill out a short form with your email address, first name, last name, and password. After that, you can download and install the tool. It's called Mendeley Desktop. Be careful. They really want you to download the newer version, which is called Mendeley Reference Manager, but in my opinion, it's not as good as the old one. So I gave a shortcut link, bit.ly/men desktop. Okay. So as you're doing that, you don't need to have this screen open. You can just download the tools. And while you're doing that, I'll tell you a little story about myself. This is a true story. I swear there are no exaggerations, maybe a couple. And this is a story about me doing research in my second year of university. So I went to a very small university in the east coast of Canada called Acadia University. Beautiful campus. The library was actually one of the nicest buildings on the campus. It was a 4-story building. And the floors were ordered by noise level. So the first floor was basically a party. Everyone was just walking around, chatting, having a good time. The second floor got a little bit quieter. The third floor was for pretty serious study. And the fourth floor, I don't think I ever went up to the fourth floor because it was silent. And I don't think I was welcome on the fourth floor. Anyway, I was on the third floor, and I still remember this assignment. I still have nightmares about it. I took a course called Music History. It was an elective course. And the assignment was to research something interesting about a classical pianist. It's a very random topic. And I wanted to do something very special. I thought this is a pretty interesting open assignment. So I chose a pianist called Franz Liszt, who was from, I think, Austria or Germany or something. And back then we had the internet. I'm not that old, but we didn't have Google Scholar for sure. Google had just come out after altavista.org. And so basically I had to look up information the old-fashioned way in books. And I remember I had a pile of books about classical musicians and Franz Liszt. And I painfully looked through all these books and I bookmarked pages that might be useful for my assignment. And I had about 12 or 15 books probably on my desk in the library. And I was really tired. It was about 9 o'clock in the evening. So I walked up. I went for a walk outside the library for about 45 minutes. And when I came back, I was shocked that all of my books were gone. It was a nightmare. All of my books were gone. My desk was empty. And I panicked because I had bookmarked all of the information I was going to use for my assignment. And I absolutely panicked. And I went down to the front desk and I said, "Excuse me," I was running, "Excuse me, have you seen the books on my desk from the third floor?" And they said, "No, somebody must have collected them. You can try walking around. Maybe you'll find the library staff." So I walked around all across the third floor, all across the fourth floor, and I couldn't find the librarian with the cart of books. And I gave up hope. I walked back to my desk, ready to go home and get a 0 for my assignment. And I couldn't believe it, but I found the library staff with a cart of books. And on the top of the cart were all of my books with the bookmarks still in them. It was an absolute miracle. And so I took my books back, bookmarks intact, and I stayed up all night to finish my assignment. So that's a story about old-fashioned reference management and how we've come a long way since then. So hope that killed a bit of time as you installed your tool. But this is a tool which I wish I had back then, because with this tool, there's no way you can lose all of your resources. Like I lost my books in the library. And more importantly, it's a much faster way to search and take notes in all of your resources. So hopefully that killed enough time. Has everyone installed the tool yet, or are some people still going? Okay, if you're still going, don't worry. You can keep installing it as I talk about reference management tools. What are these things and why are they so useful? So before I talk about 3 popular tools, I'm very curious about, has anyone in the session used any reference management tools, such as Mendeley Desktop? And if so, could you tell us which ones you've used and how many stars would you rate it? 1 being not very useful, 5 being incredibly useful. Good one. Good student. You still have it installed. Hopefully you're still using it. Yeah.
I personally use another tool called Zotero. It's great. However, I don't know, the designs look kind of outdated, but however, it's useful, so I still using it with the Mendeley.
Okay, great. Yeah, Zotero is one of the 3 I'm going to talk about today. Good. Citation machine, 1 out of 5. Yeah, that's not a really good one. I agree with your rating, Kwan. Okay, so there are a couple of tools, and I'll talk about them shortly. But here's the issue that we have whenever we're doing research. And it doesn't matter if you're a veteran researcher or a novice researcher. We all face the same issue, which is drowning in information. Back in the day, I was drowning in books on my desk. But really, in this day and age, we're drowning in PDFs and digital resources. So this is what we have to deal with. Too much information, too hard to manage it and keep it organized. That's the problem. It's a good thing that we have all this information, but it's a problem because we can get overwhelmed with all of these digital assets. So you might have experienced this while you're doing your assignments, where you have a folder full of PDFs, right? And when you download PDFs, sometimes they have clear file names, but other times it's like 0074193.pdf. And it's very hard to remember which article is that PDF I downloaded. So this is the dilemma. We have all of these digital assets, which is good, but it's very hard to keep organized. And that's where some of these tools can really come in handy. So the general category of these tools, we call them reference management. Some people call them citation management, but for me, that's a little bit limited in scope. So I like to think of these as managing our reference material, our sources. They all kind of do the same function. They store all of our resources and they help us keep organized in different ways. One thing they all do is they help us to add metadata. So if we import a PDF, most of the time it can recognize who's the author, what year was this published, what's the title of the paper, in which journal was it published. Sometimes you have the abstract as well. So all of these tools are very good at that core job, which is adding metadata to our library. They all help you to organize, so you can have folder structures, you can have different folders for different purposes. Some of these tools will help you annotate PDFs, and that's why I really like Mendeley Desktop, because it's one of the few tools that lets you annotate your PDFs directly. All of these will allow you to add citations and bibliographies or reference lists. So although it's good to know the mechanics of how to cite and reference, these tools will do most of the work for you. And our job is just to check if the tools have done it correctly. And what's really helpful is all of these tools will sync your library. So you'll never worry about losing your PDFs, losing your files. It keeps them all synced to the cloud, which is great, especially if you use multiple devices. The 3 big ones, or the 3 common ones, are EndNote, that's kind of the commercial tool, Zotero, which is the open source tool, and Mendeley Desktop, which is kind of in between. It's not open source. It's owned by a gigantic journal publisher called Elsevier, but it's free. Well, the basic one is free. So here is my very brief comparison of the 3 tools. All of them will add metadata when you import your articles or your PDFs. They're all pretty good. They all generally do it correctly, with a few exceptions. Some of them let you search the entire text of your PDFs in the library. And that's why I really like Mendeley, because you can search all of your assets at once. EndNote, you can kind of search all of them, but the results, in my experience, are not very clear. Zotero, you can't. You can't search within your PDFs at all, unless I'm missing something. So for searching within PDFs, Mendeley, in my opinion, is the king of them all. In terms of viewing your PDFs within the app, Zotero, you cannot. It will open in your default PDF reader. But for EndNote and Mendeley, they have built-in PDF viewers. So you don't need to worry about installing Acrobat Reader and things like that. Within the app, you can open up the PDFs. Some of them let you annotate and leave notes. Yep, and it's the same 2 that have the built-in PDF viewers. EndNote is very basic in my experience. Adding notes is very simple. Mendeley Desktop, you have a little bit more flexibility with your notes and annotations, which we'll look at today. And none of them are fantastic for searching within your notes. EndNote, you can't. Zotero, you can, but only if it's a standalone note, not a child note. Mendeley Desktop, you can search your overall notes, but not the notes within your PDF. So none of them are fantastic for searching within notes, but I find Mendeley is probably the best of the 3 for that. So my personal opinion, EndNote is very good at organizing references and citations. It's the best of all 3 for having lots of different reference citation styles. It has everyone you could dream of. It's very good at its job of making reference lists or bibliographies, but I find the search and the PDF annotation fairly weak, in my opinion. Zotero, it's great. I love the open source movement. It's really nice to support it. It's basic. It does what it needs to do, which is basically creating citations and reference lists or bibliographies, but it's not very good at actually reading your sources. You can't annotate them, and I find the search function is hit or miss. Mendeley, I find it's a good all-rounder. It's pretty good at most of its jobs. The built-in PDF reader is really good, and the search is the best of all of them, which I think is the most useful function. I find it's a proper library management system. It's not just for making your citations and reference lists. You can do all of your research basically within one tool. So it gives my official seal of approval. 2 thumbs up, 5 stars. Great one. Okay, so let's do some hands-on practice with Mendeley Desktop. And hopefully you've had a chance to install the tool and have it open. So again, what does it do? Many things. It organizes your PDFs, which is probably the most fundamental thing we need, is to keep all of our articles and PDFs organized. It's pretty good at adding metadata. It's pretty accurate. Best of all, I've highlighted these 2 features. You can search all of your PDFs within one search bar. So you can search for keywords or sentences, and it will highlight the results within the PDF, which is really, really, really good. You can highlight, you can annotate on your PDFs, and it will save and synchronize all of your notes and annotations. So if you lose your computer or if you move to a different computer at home, it will keep all of your annotations in sync. You get 2 gigabytes for free, more than you'll ever need. I think I've only used about 200 megabytes so far. And you can, like all of these other tools, you can automatically make your citations and reference lists in Microsoft Word. So it's a really good tool. It's magical in my opinion. And today we're going to explore some of these basic functions. All right, so if you're ready, hop on, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to have a wild ride using Mendeley Desktop. So for each of these functions, I'll show you a very brief description, and then I'll give you 2 minutes to try it for yourself. Okay. So if you don't already, make sure you have Mendeley Desktop open and ready to go. Fasten your seatbelts. Take a deep breath. It's going to be a wild roller coaster ride. So first thing we need to do is we need to get something into our library. For Mendeley, you can add your resources in many different ways. You can drag a PDF or multiple PDFs into the app, or you can click the Add button. You can add individual files or an entire folder of PDFs. Or number 3, this is kind of like Dropbox, if anyone still uses Dropbox. It's called a watch folder. So basically, it will watch if there's any new files added to that folder in your Windows or Mac Explorer. It will automatically add those new files to your Mendeley library. So it keeps an eye out for your folder. If there's any new PDFs, it will add them automatically. Fantastic. So let's do a simple task, okay? I'd like you to try and add some kind of a journal article or several of them if you have them to your library. And if you don't have one, here's a shortcut to an article about robot vacuum cleaners if you need a PDF. And after that, if you could add a watch folder, you could call it research PDFs or something. And number 3, could you star or favorite one PDF? Okay, so I'll start the 2-minute timer. Good luck. All right. It's pretty easy. That was step 1. It probably did take you the full 2 minutes, but you can see it's a really nice way to add your sources, particularly the watch folder. It's a really nice feature, so you don't need to constantly add them manually. Mendeley will do it automatically for you. So I think the watch folder feature is really nice. My advice is don't set your download folder to be your watch folder, because any PDF you download, Mendeley will try to add it to your library, including things which aren't really academic sources. So maybe have a separate folder. Once you download them, you can move them to that watch folder. All right, so far so good. Have I lost anyone? Is anyone drowning? Okay, let's up it a notch. Let's up the difficulty level. Now we have some PDFs in our library, but sooner or later, you're going to have a huge list of sources in your library, which means it's not very different from having a folder full of PDFs. So at some point, we're going to need some folders to keep these sources organized. So you might have different folders for different purposes. For example, maybe you have a folder for sources which you think are really good for some figures. There's some nice graphs, some nice charts that you think you might use. Maybe you have a folder for those kinds of sources. Maybe you have another folder for some findings, so some secondary information that you think is a really nice way to support your findings. Perhaps you have a folder called findings, or a folder for raw data, etc., etc. You could have a folder for great, absolutely the best of the best. I will definitely use these. You could have a folder for they're okay, but I need to read them a bit more carefully, etc. So you could create folders for different purposes. To do that, you just need to click the plus folder button up at the top, and you can give it a name. The good thing about Mendeley, you can have the same PDF in multiple folders. So you might have a PDF which is good for figures, but also good for raw data. And you can have the same PDF in 2 different folders. And within Mendeley Desktop, when you search in the search bar in the top right, it will search all of your folders simultaneously. So you don't need to worry about clicking on the folder, then searching. It will search all of your folders at once. Mendeley also has some automatic folders. So recently read, that's a really good one if you can't remember which paper you read yesterday, for example. It will automatically add it to your recently read. You can have your folders. That's where you star the article. So you have these automatic folders as well. Recently added, recently read, and favorites. So that could be useful as well. We're not going to do a practice for that one. That's pretty self-explanatory. All right. This is where it gets really exciting, and this is where I think Mendeley is the best of all of these tools, is the actual reading and highlighting your PDFs. So if you double click on a title, it will open up the PDF viewer. And within there, you can highlight the text in lots of different colors, 8 colors. Very nice pastel shades, I must say. So you can have a color scheme when you highlight. So for example, green means maybe a really useful quote. I think I'll use this quote in my paper. Blue could be, I don't know, maybe a really useful piece of data. Purple could be another source that you think is a good one to read, etc., etc. So you could have a different color scheme, whatever works for you, you can decide. And you can also add sticky notes, kind of like annotating in the margin. So you could right-click on a location, press Add Note, or you can press the note icon up in the toolbar, and you can change the color of notes just like you can do with the highlighting. So it's a very powerful tool. And the nice thing about notes is you can see a summary of all of your notes in the main library. So once you add notes to your paper, when you click on it once in your library, you'll see all of your notes on the right-hand side. So it's a nice way to see a summary of your notes without opening up the PDF again. Like you can see here, this is from the library view. And I can see not only my notes, but also the color that I used for my notes as a summary. And Mendeley calls these private annotations. Unfortunately, you cannot search them. That's the one weakness of Mendeley Desktop. You can see the summary in your library view, but unfortunately, you can't search within these private annotations. I've been trying for years. They're not listening to me, but unfortunately, it's just not possible. So maybe they'll listen to students instead of old faculty like myself. So my opinion, the best part of Mendeley is this, opening up the PDF, highlighting, adding sticky notes. So let's do a bit of practice. You can open up the vacuum cleaner one I shared or any other PDF you have. 3 things to do. Number 1, add a general note. So these ones you can search. You can search general notes, but not your private annotations. So number 1, try and leave a general note. Just write anything. 2, highlight the PDF with some different colors. And number 3, add a couple of sticky notes in different colors. Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes. Good luck. All right. I apologize. I can't see the chat box when I'm doing that because if I leave the timer, it will reset back to 2 minutes. I'm kind of flying blind during the 2 minutes. But I see a couple of people have finished super fast. Yeah, it's a really intuitive interface. In my opinion, it's actually better than Adobe Acrobat. It's a really simple, smooth interface. And the thing I like best is you can see that summary of your notes, like I showed you here. So being able to see that as you click through your library is a really nice feature because you don't need to open it up and click on all of your sticky notes. You can just see at a glance. So really nice feature in my opinion. And speaking of nice features, this is, again, probably one of the best things about Mendeley, which I'm surprised its competitors don't do very well. This seems like pretty basic functionality. But with Mendeley, you can search all of your PDFs at once from that library view on the homepage. You can also search your overall notes. And by overall notes, it means these ones up here. They call them general notes. But unfortunately, like I said before, you cannot search your sticky notes within your PDFs. But if you do want to search these general notes, you just add this prefix note : and then whatever keywords you want. You can do a single word, you can do multiple words, and you'll see the results highlighted in yellow. So it's possible to search general notes, but not the overall notes. Yeah, I wish, but not yet. However, it's very good for searching keywords within your PDFs. So it will search your whole library at once. Very nice feature. Okay, let's do a bit of practice. Think of some keywords and go to your main library view, type in some keywords up in the top right search box, and you'll notice that the results are highlighted in yellow in your list of sources. Once you double click on a PDF, it will highlight the result within the PDF. So if you do a keyword, and if it happens multiple times, you'll see it highlighted throughout the PDF. Okay, so just think of some random words, open up the PDF, notice the highlights. And if you're brave, you could add a general note and search using note : in the search bar. Okay, that's for the high achievers, number 2. All right, I'll set the timer. 2 minutes.
I suppose that in the last semester at the university last year, Vinuni students have been really kind of master this skill because we have to finish our academic English 2 course, which is all about doing our own research. So yeah, hope everyone will be the master of this kind of using Mendeley soon.
I hope so. And again, this is just my personal preference of the tools, but if you have equal success with Zotero or EndNote or whatever, everyone has their own preference and their own style. So don't feel like you have to use it. It's just one of many tools, but I find that it does have some really nice features compared to some of the others. But of course, don't feel like you have to. Yeah, it's a free world. Okay. So you can see the search functionality is quite good, and you can see the live results as you type in your keywords. You'll see the list in your library update. And again, once you double click on it, you'll see those results highlighted in yellow. And it wouldn't be a reference management tool without this basic functionality, which is citing and referencing for you, which it's good, but like any tool, it's automatic. So you do have to be careful and double check the results. So Mendeley has a plugin. Unfortunately, you need to download it separately. It's called Mendeley Cite. So if you go back to that Mendeley website, you can download the Word plugin. I find Word plugins are a little bit finicky, so you might need to install the standalone version instead of the Word add-in, but it should work eventually. And basically, you can automatically add citations, in-text citations from your library, and you can also add bibliography or reference list. Because different disciplines and different faculty have their own different style of citations, it's pretty good. It doesn't have as many as Note, and they're starting to show their age. I don't know how often they're updating with new editions of this, but we should have all the big players at least. So 88th edition, should have that one, along with the big ones like Chicago and Harvard and things like that. So there's probably not enough time to show this video, but basically, if you go on YouTube, they have all of these tutorial videos on how to use it. For the sake of time, please skip this video if that's all right. Here's one I found to search for using this plugin for Word. And you should find it. If the Word doesn't work for some reason, then you can always do it the manual way. So to do that, first of all, you need to choose your citation style. So in the home screen, go to View and then Citation Style. And you'll see a list of all of the main ones on the right here. Then you need to sort them in alphabetical order. So if you click on Author, it should sort them from A to Z, or Z to A. You may need to click twice, so it's A to Z. And after you do that, you can either select all of your sources if you just want them all to be in your reference list, or you can hold down Control or Command and just select certain ones. And once you've selected the sources for your reference list, right-click on any one of them, then Copy As, and then Formatted Citation. This will copy to your clipboard, and you can paste it into Word, and it should, fingers crossed, it should keep all of the formatting correct. Things like italics and hanging indents and things like that. It's not perfect, but it should work pretty well. Okay. Am I sounding like an alien? Sometimes my computer gets, it doesn't like my passion for Mendeley, and it tells me to be quiet. All right. So let's do a practice. You can do either just a single source, or you could select all of your sources. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. So you don't need the plugin for this one. Sort alphabetically, so just click on the Authors tab here. Make sure it's in descending order, not ascending. Select all of them. That's Control A or Command A. And then right-click, Copy As, Formatted Citation. Okay. And then you can paste it into Word. Just open a new document. Right. This one's pretty easy. I'll give you maybe a minute and a half instead of 2 minutes. It's pretty quick. All right, so it's a lifesaver, but just always remember with these automated reference and citation tools is they may make mistakes, particularly with the order of names. I find sometimes they mix up the first name and the surname. Particularly with Vietnamese names, they tend to reverse the order quite often. And if you use websites such as newspaper articles or just common websites, you may need to manually add the information yourself. So just always double check. AI is good, but it's no replacement for human intuition sometimes. So always double check your reference list, make sure it hasn't made any mistakes. Okay. Any questions about Mendeley before we finish off with copyright? Okay, I'll save some time at the end, by the way, if anyone has any other questions. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, copyright. Now, in an ideal world, we'd have open repositories and every journal article would be open access. Information would be free. That would be nice. But the reality is a lot of journal articles are not open access. They're closed access articles, which means they're held in some kind of a database which requires access. So because a lot of people put in a lot of hard work for their research articles, including the authors themselves and, of course, the publishers, sometimes it's not possible to access them for free, okay, even though we all wish we could. So we do need to respect copyright, right? I know there are ways around it, but we do want to try and respect people's hard work and respect copyright. So here are 4 possible ways you can find your PDF in a legal and copyright respectful way. It does take a bit of luck, okay? Number 1, if you're a VinUni student, you can go to the library website and you could search for the title. Normally, I just put the full title in quotation marks. And if you're lucky, you'll see it in the list of results. And it's very easy. If you attended Tony's workshop yesterday, I believe, it's pretty easy. You can just click on it and it will take you to the e-resource. Of course, the VinUni database doesn't have everything, right? We're still growing, of course. So it does take a bit of luck. But if you're lucky, we'll have access to that particular database, which means you can just download the article directly. If it doesn't work, if you paste in the title and you get like 10,000 noise results, you may need to use advanced search where you put in the author's name, etc. But try your luck with the title, try with quotation marks, see if that works. If not, don't worry, don't give up. There's always plan B, which is to try Google Scholar. Okay, so Google Scholar, again, once you found your article, I usually just type the full title using quotation marks. If you are on the campus using VinUni Wi-Fi, it knows that you're here. Google knows everything. And you'll see this button that says Find It at VinUni. That means it's linked to the library database. And if you click on that, it will take you to the VinUni library. There's a way to do this if you're not on the Wi-Fi, right? Talk to Tony. He knows this magic shortcut. Even if you're at home, you can still see the Find It at VinUni button. I didn't know that until last week, so it blew my mind. Right, if you don't see that button, don't give up, because you might see this thing at the bottom on Google Scholar. It will say all some number versions. And this means you might be able to find the PDF. Sometimes authors have the right to publish their own work outside of the databases. So you might be able to find like their personal website. It might be archived in some other place. And you can try your luck. So if you click on all 19 versions in this example, it will show you 19 other links. Just go through, try from the beginning, and maybe if you're lucky, one of those links will take you to the full PDF. Again, takes a bit of luck, a bit of praying, but sometimes you can have some good success with Google Scholar with that. If that doesn't work, don't give up. Take a break. Have a nice warm cup of tea to calm your nerves. And you could try the DOI technique. And I like to think of it as die. I'm hungry for the PDF. So any article within the last 10 or 15 years will have a DOI, which stands for Digital Object Identifier. It's basically a unique code for every single article that's been published recently. Now, most of these websites, you can click on the link, you'll see the preview on the database or the publisher's website. So you see the abstract and the keywords and author's information. And somewhere on that page, you'll find the DOI number. It's usually buried away in different places. So what I normally do is I press Control F or Command F on a Mac, and I just search for DOI or DOI.org. Often they're listed as websites. So if you search for this within Chrome or Safari or Edge or whatever, then you should find somewhere on the page the DOI number. Okay. So in this example, it was like way at the bottom of the page, out of sight, but I found it. And what you can do then is you can copy the DOI number. So in this example, that would be starting from 10 dot blah blah blah, finishing with 12. So you can copy that. Sometimes if you copy the whole DOI URL, it also works. But I normally just copy the DOI number. And if you put that into Google, again, like Google Scholar, the author may have the rights to publish their own articles. And so it's possible to find it through this technique. I don't have great success with this one, to be honest. It really depends on luck. But if you can find the DOI number, because it's unique, you can be sure that that's the same article that you're looking for. And finally, if all of the above have failed, don't give up. There's one last thing you can do, and this one really takes a lot of luck. You can pull out the sympathy card, right? And you can email the authors directly. Now, most authors will have their email address somewhere in the abstract. Right, so this is an example from the vacuum cleaner article from before. Most authors will have their email address somewhere. Don't use your personal Gmail account. Use if you're a VinUni student, use your VinUni. If you're another student from a different university, hopefully you have a student account, right? If you have an email that ends in .edu.something, much more likely to get a positive response. If you email from prettyangel6868, they'll say, nah. Spam, not interested. And don't just say, can I have your PDF, please? I got a really important assignment due. Thanks. Get out of here. Explain who you are. Say, I'm a student from Vietnam and I'm studying blah, blah, blah subject. And I'm working on a really important assignment on blah, blah, blah. And your paper is the perfect match for my research topic. Flatter them. Show that you know a bit about them. You say, I read your other paper called Google another title, and I was really interested when you talked about insert a topic here. If you show that you care and that you really want their paper, I think a lot of authors will be willing to share it with you. However, it does require luck. These are obviously very busy people. Just like if you email Jeff Bezos, he probably won't reply. But if you could explain why are you emailing Jeff Bezos, I have this great idea to make Amazon rich, maybe he'll reply. So it's worth a try, right? And there's nothing to lose. The worst thing that happens is nobody will reply, but there's a good chance that if they reply, it will take a long time. So you may need to be patient. Do it early. Don't wait until the night before your assignment's due. And like I saw Prani in the chat box, you may need to follow up in a polite way, right? Everyone's busy, but sometimes a few nudges might be required. Yeah, but that's a great tip. Thanks, Prani. Okay, well, that is basically the end of the workshop today, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions about the topics today or anything else. If anyone has any random questions, please feel free.
Yeah, so let's wait for a few moments, then the participant can type their questions.
Sure.
Okay, maybe in the meantime, I will ask you some questions that I'm curious about. So do you have any tip or trick to right at the beginnings of doing our research in order to manage our citation like smoothly? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question, Chang. Thank you. I think it's important to filter because yes, we have these management tools, and yes, they help us keep organized. But at the same time, we don't want to just add any PDF that we find. Right? They Not everything is worth reading, and that's why we have abstracts, right? To know if this article is worth my time to invest in reading it. It's a lot of effort to read a paper, so first we need to decide: is it worth my effort to read this paper? Will it help me in some way? And if the answer is yes, then I recommend you download a copy and you put it into your library. But early on, I normally try to have a basic note for myself about what could I use this paper for. If you have that overall note, it's much easier, like a few weeks later, you can remember, oh yeah, that was that article about blah, right? If you just add it to your library, you'll very quickly forget what was this about, why was this useful, etc. So little notes to yourself when you first read the abstract or when you first read the article can be very helpful to, again, just to filter out which ones are worth keeping and worth reading and which ones are not.
Yeah. What you said was my previous mistake, so I completely agree with your answer. So yeah, it's quite tricky in order to filter and to choose what we should read and what we should not. And so another question is, from your own experience, what is the most common mistake that students usually make, even though that they have the Mendeley or they have Zotero, but they still like stumble upon that mistake? So what is the most common one?
I think it's not just students. I think it's anyone, including myself, is uh, wasting time reading things that we don't need to read. I think I think often we feel like we have to read the whole article, or we have to read it from the beginning, and then we just go through until we fall asleep. It's not like a book. It's not like, Harry Potter, where you need to follow the plot from beginning to end. Journal articles are written in such a way that they have this structure, and it's really important to know that you don't need to read everything. You need to just focus on what's useful for you at that moment. And so don't feel like you have to read the whole introduction and the whole findings section. Sometimes you need to be strategic and just filter, start with the right places instead of trying to read the whole thing. So be very selective in what you read. Note down, because you'll quickly forget if you don't note things down. And yeah, just don't feel like you have to read everything. Um, the way journal articles are written is you don't need to. You can read what's important and you can ignore the other parts that aren't useful. For example, unless I'm really passionate about this subject, I usually skip the methodology section because I'm probably not going to be doing the same experiment unless I'm really curious about how did they do this. I normally just skip it. It's not really what I need at this time, right? That's a classic example.
Yeah. Thank you for your answer. Although I believe that we may have many other questions for you about this topic, luckily our time is running out now. So sorry, everyone. We will collect your questions and send it to Mr. Rural and give his answer back to you later. And thank you, Mr. Rural, for sparing your time to introduce to us such a powerful software in order to create an effortless citations for our research project. And I believe that all participants are now aware of how important reference is and how they should do with their citation. And thank you very much again, and goodbye, and see you soon at Uni.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone. And just let me know if you want to talk about referencing and managing resources. I'm such a geek. I'm always happy to talk about it. So just let me know.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Chang.
So thank you all for joining our section today. And now please do not forget to enter your magic code, which that is mine. And don't forget to join the upcoming workshop of Dr. Brani Lim Puk and Dr. Amita Verma about ethical ethical and moral issues and researchers' responsibilities today from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And thank you all for joining the session today. See you all soon.